Oh, I said no about 4 times. I mean, it terrified me. There was no muscle in my body that told me I should play myself in a movie. Not one, and yet I did it.
Once a box office powerhouse, Nicolas Cage was famed for explosive performances and fierce intensity. But behind his iconic grin lies a man scarred by loss and struggle. How does someone who earned one of Hollywood's greatest fortunes lose it all while searching for peace? This is more than a story of fame. It's a portrait of redemption. Beneath the glitter, Cage battles heartbreak, turbulent love, and the weight of his past. When the applause fades and the lights dim, his journey becomes one of survival and meaning in Hollywood's harsh, unyielding glare. Early shadows and identity struggles. Nicolas Cage's story begins not in the dazzling glow of Hollywood, but in a household where silence echoed louder than laughter. Born Nicholas Kim Coppola on January 7, 1964, in Long Beach, California, he grew up as the youngest of 3 brothers in a family steeped in intellect and artistry, yet marked by deep emotional fractures. His father, a literature professor, embodied discipline and philosophy, while his mother, a dancer and choreographer, struggled with fragile mental health that cast long shadows over their home. Cage later described his childhood as a series of quiet moments, pierced by his mother's distant sobs, where joy was fleeting and tension a constant companion. When Nicholas was just 12, the fragile balance of his parents' marriage finally broke under the weight of quiet suffering. The divorce left him navigating between the intellect of his father and the emotions inherited from his mother, a duality he confessed has shaped him ever since. This early fracture instilled in him a deep loneliness that followed him through adolescence and beyond, molding a young boy who learned to hide fear behind a calm exterior, a skill that would become one of his great acting strengths. At Beverly Hills High School, he was taunted for his famous family name, the Coppolas, with peers dismissing his success as inherited rather than earned. This sting forced him to create a protective persona. To escape this scrutiny, he adopted the alias Roy Richards, draping himself in leather and dark glasses, seeking not just to hide his identity, but to reclaim it entirely. This pursuit of self wasn't born of whimsy, but rebellion. Inspired by the avant-garde composer John Cage and Marvel's Luke Cage, figures symbolizing artistic freedom and resilience, he took their namesake, marking the first bold step in controlling his destiny. Through this new identity, Nicolas Cage began to break free from the shadows of his upbringing and the weight of expectation. Amid this search for meaning, acting emerged as his sanctuary. Influenced by icons like James Dean and Bruce Lee, he saw how raw emotion could hold power and transformation. By 15, Cage was captivated by the idea of channeling his own pain and silence into performances that moved audiences. This was more than a career choice, it was a lifeline. Every fragment of his early loneliness and fear became fuel for the intensity he brought to the screen, turning vulnerability into strength. The boy who once hid behind dark glasses was destined to face the world beneath the brightest lights. He carried with him the echoes of his mother's tears and the silence of his youth, turning them into a fire that would later blaze on film. His performances, often portraying fractured souls, reflected the very real wounds he wore inside. It was this pain and resilience that made Cage's acting magnetic, as if every role carried a piece of his own story. Yet pain's hold on Cage was relentless, morphing and shifting, but never fading. Leaving home did not release him from the silence. It transformed into a gnawing echo of rejection and invisibility. The neon-lit nights of Los Angeles only highlighted his isolation, as luminescence and laughter played on the surface while he felt miles away in the dark. Cage later admitted to carrying that silence with him, forcing himself to find ways to turn it into artistry and, eventually, survival. In stepping away from privilege at 17, Nicolas faced harsh realities. Forsaking the Coppola name and the comfort it promised, he drifted through run-down apartments, sometimes sleeping in his car, surviving on odd jobs and fleeting opportunities. He was one anonymous dreamer among thousands, wandering Hollywood's cracked sidewalks, haunted by invisibility, yet fueled by an unyielding need to be truly seen. Not as a Coppola, but as himself. Through every rejection and hardship, Cage refined his craft and honed a fierce determination. The road to becoming a Hollywood icon was paved with trials few could imagine, and those early years laid the foundation for a career forged in fire. Chasing dreams and breaking through. Cage's early steps in Hollywood were anything but glamorous. His first roles appeared in the early 1980s, but progress was slow and often disheartening. In 1981's The Best of Times, his small part went almost unnoticed, and in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, his scenes were cut entirely. These early setbacks threatened to extinguish his dream, but Cage's resilience pushed him to study harder and audition relentlessly. A pivotal moment came when his uncle, famed director Francis Ford Coppola, offered him a role in Rumble Fish. Rather than accepting out of nepotism, Nicolas insisted the part be earned on merit. Around this time, he officially changed his name from Coppola to Cage, drawing inspiration from his heroes, John Cage, the experimental composer, and Marvel's Luke Cage, a symbol of strength and rebellion. This rebirth wasn't just a change of name, but a declaration of independence and a vow to forge his own path. Determined to embody honesty rather than celebrity, Cage committed fully to his roles. For the film Birdie in 1984, he endured the agony of having 2 teeth pulled without anesthesia to authentically portray suffering. On Racing with the Moon, he isolated himself in a cold trailer, subsisting on canned soup to channel loneliness. Hollywood may have deemed him eccentric or crazy, but Cage called it truth, pursuing raw emotion at any cost. This relentless method started to draw people's attention. The spectators of the world began to witness a new type of actor who was not just portraying the character, but was actually going through it completely. His appetite, his pain, and his weakness were the forces pushing the performances and letting through the roar of his past silence in every screen appearance. The light which had been hidden inside him was shared with the world at last. Cage's actor personality, which was very different from others, was noticed exactly during the time when he got together with Moonstruck, where his dynamic nature turned a simple love story into something electrifying. This movie represented the very moment when audiences started noticing him. But this fame, which Cage soon realized was a mixed blessing, boosted his spirit while gradually erasing his essence. The silence that had once protected him was now gradually going away. After 3 years, Cage's boldness broke out in Wild at Heart, a film that was a challenge to the viewers and got the critics' approval at the same time. The critics called him a madman, while the public considered him to be very close to reality. Cage admitted that at this time he was not acting but rather surrendering to the madness as a truth. But the higher he was, the more difficult it became for him to stay up there, as the air was getting thinner due to his fame. In 1995, Nicolas Cage gave the performance that would turn him into a legend, Leaving Las Vegas. Acting as a self-destructive drunkard, Cage drew the boundary of actor and self very close to each other, confessing that he was not merely portraying the role, but was actually living it. His Oscar win was very much appreciated, but amidst the applause and the bright lights, he was left wondering whether it was triumph or just survival. He felt the applause was more like a funeral. Not long after, Cage became a Hollywood myth through major hits like The Rock, Con Air, and Face Off. His paycheck was $20 million per movie, overtaking the world with his massive presence. However, the speed of such a lifestyle took its toll on him. He was slowly and painfully losing himself through a combination of sleepless nights, unceasing filming, and his own emotional draining. It was a struggle that almost ended the star power of the fierce spirit that was once he. The dazzling rise obscured the mounting personal costs Cage would soon face, revealing how fame can both forge and fracture a man. Peak fame and personal costs. At the apex of his career, Nicolas Cage was a star unmatched, his name a box office magnet and his bank account swelling with riches. Films like City of Angels in 1998 showcased a softer side, exploring themes of love and longing, reflecting Cage's own search for something beyond success. Yet beneath the glimmering surface, cracks began to form in his personal life and finances. The early 2000s brought cinematic highs and costly lows. Snake Eyes faltered at the box office, and Captain Corelli's mandolin lost millions, dents that bruised Cage's confidence. Still, he pressed on, determined not to falter. Then, with National Treasure in 2004, he returned triumphantly, pulling in over $300 million worldwide and amassing an estimated fortune of $150 million. But despite the wealth and acclaim, Cage felt hollow. Nights spent staring at his hotel room ceiling revealed a loneliness that awards and trophies could not quench. The legend and the boy within him wrestled for peace, with each victory on screen shadowed by an emptiness only he could feel. His relentless quest for meaning came at a staggering personal cost. What followed was a cascade of extravagance. Cage purchased mansions that kissed the clouds, including a Gothic estate in New Orleans rumored to be haunted, a historic castle in England, and a private island in the Bahamas. His garages housed exotic cars like Ferraris and Rolls-Royces, and a collection of rare artifacts, meteorites, dinosaur skulls, and valuable comics that formed a strange cathedral to his own tempestuous spirit. This opulence, however, could not shield Cage from financial ruin. The 2008 global economic crash decimated his fortune overnight. The Internal Revenue Service filed a lien exceeding $6 million, and assets once gleaming with champagne and laughter were sold at auction. The castle, island, and haunted estate all slipped from his grasp, echoing the fall of a king who silently chose not to speak of his loss. Refusing to declare bankruptcy, Cage committed to repaying his debts. This meant selling everything, not out of pride, but survival. As scripts dried up and the phone stopped ringing, he leaned into his work harder than ever, filming up to 5 movies a year across genres, fueled not by fame, but by redemption. The man who once earned $20 million per film was rebuilding his life one paycheck at a time. This grueling journey through obscurity and hard work rekindled a quieter fire. Indie filmmakers saw not the washed-up star, but a man who had walked through darkness and emerged scarred but shining. Films like Joe, Mandy, and Pig marked his slow but steady return, each role a whispered defiance against the label of fallen star. Through loss and recovery, Cage rediscovered humility and truth. From dizzying heights to profound lows, Nicolas Cage's story reveals how the brightest fame can cast the darkest shadows, and how resilience can light a path through both. The fall from fortune. Nicolas Cage's staggering rise was matched only by the dramatic fall that followed. At the height of his success, He purchased a series of lavish properties: an ancient Gothic estate in New Orleans rumored to be haunted, a castle steeped in history in England, and a private island in the Bahamas that seemed to bow to his presence. His garages were temples to speed, housing rare Ferraris and Rolls-Royces, while his collections included meteorites, dinosaur skulls, and priceless comic books. This opulence was both a statement and a refuge, a fortress built for the ghosts of his restless spirit. Yet beneath this empire, trouble was quietly creeping in. The global financial crash of 2008 struck like a thunderbolt, fracturing Cage's fortune almost overnight. The Internal Revenue Service filed a lien exceeding $6 million, and irreplaceable properties once filled with celebration and laughter were suddenly up for auction. The castle, the island, the haunted estate, all slipped beyond his reach. Cage watched as his material world shattered, his belongings carried away like relics of a golden age now lost. The image of a king's fall was echoed by the silence Cage chose to keep. Unlike some celebrities, he avoided public spectacle or scandal. He refused to declare bankruptcy, insisting, "I got myself in, so I'm going to get myself out." This quiet determination meant selling every asset he could, not from pride, but necessity. Each sale was a wound, a confession that he was losing more than money. He was losing pieces of a dream forged in fire. As the phones stopped ringing and scripts dried up, Cage found himself forced to reimagine survival. He pushed hard, working relentlessly, 4 or 5 films a year across budgets and genres, with one goal: to crawl back from the edge. The same man who once commanded $20 million per film was now rebuilding one paycheck at a time. The public mocked his fall, turning his struggles into internet memes, but beneath the noise, his resolve never broke. Through exhaustion and reinvention, Cage began to find something quieter, igniting deep inside. Indie filmmakers started seeking not the blockbuster star, but the man who had faced darkness and emerged scarred, yet shining. Films like Joe, Mandy, and Pig symbolized this slow renaissance, each role a soft rebellion against the label of washed up. As Cage redefined himself through stripped-down performances, humility and truth reshaped his identity. His reflection on this fall grew clearer with time. Rather than curse misfortune, Cage called it grace, a brutal teacher that reminded him why acting was never about money, but about honesty. "The higher I climbed, the farther I drifted from it," he admitted. After losing it all, he realized the truth was all that remained, and he began again. Humbler, wiser, and alive in a way fame had never permitted. In the silence following his financial collapse, the private storms in Cage's heart found new ground, where love and loss would intertwine in ways that shaped him beyond fame or fortune. Love and heartbreak. Nicolas Cage's personal life has mirrored the intensity of his career, fiery, unpredictable, and deeply human. Before fame consumed him, he shared a tender chapter with actress Christina Fulton. Their son, Weston, was born in 1990, and for a brief time, their home glowed with warmth amid artistic uncertainty. Yet the relentless pull of Hollywood drew Cage away. Love faded into the distance, replaced by missed calls and birthdays. The relationship ended quietly, leaving Cage with lingering regret and gratitude for lessons learned. In the early 1990s, Cage found solace in model Kristen Zhang, whose calm temperament, his restless nature. Their romance, two storms meeting in balance, offered a fragile peace. He proposed under candlelight, but fate intervened when Patricia Arquette, an old flame, returned. The spark reignited, consuming his world in passion and chaos. Their marriage became legend, desert drives, whispered poems, wild devotion. Friends compared them to lightning meeting gasoline. Yet such brilliance could not last. Cracks appeared, arguments, silence, and the isolating walls of fame. Within a year, their love dissolved, leaving Cage haunted, but forever changed. Patricia remained his enduring ghost, a love both destructive and defining. He poured his heartbreak into his work, transforming pain into art. When asked why he still believes in love, Cage answered with the knowing smile of a man who's lived it wild, luminous, and fleeting. Then came Lisa Marie Presley, daughter of the king. Their bond was instant, yet fragile, a meeting of two haunted hearts. Passion and pride collided, until one day, in grief and frustration, Cage hurled his $65,000 wedding ring into a river. Though they reconciled briefly, their marriage ended quietly. Later, Cage called her a reflection, not another heartbreak, a reminder that even wild hearts crave calm. Peace finally found him in a Los Angeles sushi bar, where he met Alice Kim, a young waitress whose grounded warmth steadied him. Their age gap drew attention, but together they built a quiet life, raising their son Cal away from Hollywood's glare. In Alice, Cage discovered a love not of spectacle, but of steadiness, the kind that, after years of chaos, finally let him rest. Love, in all its fierce and tender forms, had shaped Cage deeply, yet the story was far from over. The stage was set for healing and redemption in ways only time and grace could provide. Redemption and quiet peace. After years of chaos and loss, Nicolas Cage found renewal, not in fame, but in quiet resilience. In 2020, at 56, he met Riko Shibata, a gentle artist from Japan whose calm presence grounded him. Their connection blossomed into love, leading to an intimate Las Vegas wedding in 2021, held on February 16th to honor Cage's late father. It marked a turning point. A life once driven by excess shifted toward stillness and gratitude. The arrival of their daughter, August Francesca, in 2022 brought Cage profound joy. Gone are the castles and extravagance. Now his happiness lies in simple routines. Morning ocean walks, family laughter, and bedtime stories. Financially, Cage rebuilt himself through relentless work, refusing bankruptcy and repaying every debt by 2017. His current stability, with a modest Malibu home and pared-down possessions, reflects not wealth, but wisdom. His few classic cars and humble Seiko watch serve as reminders of balance, not status. Family has become his greatest treasure. His relationship with his eldest son, Weston, now centers on creativity and healing. Cage's philanthropy, quietly supporting Amnesty International, disaster relief, and environmental causes, reveals a man who gives without seeking attention. His recent films, including Pig and Dream Scenario, echo his inner transformation, performances of quiet strength and introspection. These days, Cage lives by the rhythm of peace, coffee, meditation, jazz, and ocean waves. After decades of turmoil, he has discovered something far rarer than fame: the grace of contentment. Nicolas Cage's journey from blazing stardom to humble redemption teaches us that the greatest strength lies in rising after falling. His story reminds us that true peace often comes not from triumph, but from enduring pain and finding meaning beyond it. If you found this inspiring, please like and subscribe for more stories that reveal the heart behind the headlines.